Sergeant Velasquez, the young Marine sergeant, the squad leader who had first identified Amenah, and his platoon commander, Lieutenant Steve Dobb, they had alerted me to the fact that there was a problem with the little girl. So as Amenah walked across the room and climbed up in my lap to eat a piece of chocolate, she captured my heart, and of course the heart of the Marines. And all of us, or most of us, had small children that we'd left behind. And one of the ways that I broke the ice with the Iraqis, I usually carried around a crumpled up picture of my wife and children. And, they'd pass that around, and we'd talk about our families, have some common ground. And so I had a little girl at home, not much older than Amenah. And it seemed to me that if the situation were reversed, that I would want for someone to do for Rachel what I was tried to do for Amenah. Sergeant Velasquez had obviously been through the decision-making process and decided to engage me and say, "Sir, I want you to see this little girl and see what we can do about helping her." And then after I had met with her, was I going to bring this to Colonel Bellin's attention? And so I tried to be very judicious about the issues that I brought to his attention. So as I walked back, we walked back from the northern part of the city there, and after dark, and I got to my CP, which was a bombed-out Iraqi high school, and sat there beside my cot and reflected on what I had seen. The problem did seem a little overwhelming. What were we going to do? I mean, I'm certainly no open heart surgeon. What am I going to do to help this little girl? And to some degree, the folks were counting on us to help her in some way. They were depending upon us to do something to help this little girl. It was pretty clear to me when I woke up the next morning that I needed to go see Captain Nadeau. I knew that I would have to enlist his expertise to see if it was even in the realm of possible. Medically, is this something that can be helped? And then after I spoke with him, I think he and I decided together that we were going to speak with the battalion commander about it.
Kevin Gerard came to my shop one evening, and said, my people have found a little girl who is blue, and can you come see her because they're concerned that she's blue? So I said, sure, I'll go see her. So we went down and met this little girl in her house, and I still remember it was late in the fall. It was cold. This house had no heating. This girl was indeed blue. So I examined her, and it was pretty clear. If you see a toddler who's blue, they've got cyanotic congenital heart disease. And there's a very short list of things that can be wrong with them that would allow them to live to be toddler and not die very young. Children such as this, any significant pulmonary infection, I was thinking in this cold house with no heat, that's going to happen soon. Any significant pulmonary infection, this little girl is going to die. So when Kevin asked me, can we help this girl, I said, no, there's not much we can do about this. Now, if this girl presented to the emergency room at my hospital, we would admit her and fix her. So we could fix this girl, but if she were in Nashville, that would be a relatively easy thing. But here we can't do that. And, well, if we don't fix her, what's going to happen? I said, well, she'll probably get a chest infection, and she'll die of it. So when I said to him, if this girl were in Nashville, we could fix her, so the wheels were turning. So then we need to send this girl to Nashville. I said, well, I can probably arrange for Vanderbilt Children's Hospital to fix this girl if you can get her there. So I contacted the surgeon, who was a patient of mine actually, and said, I've got this little girl with congenital cyanotic congenital heart disease who probably has a tetralogy. If we can get her to Nashville, can you get the hospital to fix her? Now that's probably going to cost. The operation and hospitalization in today's world would probably cost a couple $100,000. So she emailed me back and said, I'd be happy to fix her, but it's a question of whether the hospital will foot the bill for that. So a little bit of time went by. We emailed back and forth. I ultimately, I believe, emailed the Vice Chancellor, who I knew very well, I'm in the division of nephrology, and he was the chairman, so I'd known him for years. So I said, this is the situation we're in, this is what I need. Can you call up the director of the Children's Hospital and see if you can grease the skids here? And shortly after that email, Carly emailed me back and said, we're good to go. You get the girl here, we'll fix her. Then the question was, is she fit to travel? What do they need? And we emailed back and forth to the folks that are the EMT type guys who are going to be with her, and the cardiologists and the surgeons at Vanderbilt about what she might need. Does she need oxygen on the plane, etc. But as soon as we got that piece done, Kevin was working on getting the money to get her there. The hospital was ready to take her, and then it was just a matter of letting the Marines do their thing. And that was Colonel Bellin and Kevin.
Major Kevin Gerard and one of his squads was on patrol, and they came across a little girl. And the father had approached them to help this little girl. And the sergeant at the time has had two choices. On any patrol, he's approached dozens of times with dozens of issues. And you simply cannot address every single issue. But he did engage on this particular issue, Amenah. He came back to Kevin Gerard and he described the situation. Again, Kevin had a choice. He has hundreds of issues every day to deal with. And he could have decided to either engage on this issue, address it, or to pass on it, which certainly would have been the easier decision. He decides to engage. And ultimately, he brought it to me. And I had weighed it out pretty carefully. It took about an instant to figure out, what the cost-benefit analysis was of doing this, whether to engage on the problem and develop it further or to pass. And candidly, based on my faith in Kevin Gerard and my belief in him and in Captain Nadeau, Dr. John Nadeau, the two that had already scrutinized this problem set, I immediately decided to engage.
Once we discerned and there was consensus that this was the right thing to do, then of course all that remains is to be courageous enough to pursue it relentlessly. And it became very apparent that Amenah's life was at stake, that we were going to weight this as a main effort to help this little girl as part of our overall efforts to help the Iraqi people there. And so whatever obstacles came into our path, we were determined to overcome those obstacles.